Hey, how do you feel about some high rarity cards, or maybe some foreign ones, or maybe be ahead of the game with others by preparing for future set releases with very quick shipping? Check out EJ Gaming and use code British5 on checkout for 5% off on all your orders. Link in the description.
Greetings duelists and welcome to another video. As most duelists tuning into this channel might know by now, Phantom Nightmare has debuted 1 month in the OCG. That is going to be our main booster set in the upcoming TCG next in 2024. Before the release of Phantom Nightmare, we're going to be getting the Fire King structure deck, and soon after that we'll be getting Maze of Millennium, which is the second volume to the previous set Maze of Memories that debuted on March this year earlier. I made a video talking about how Snake Eye pretty much evolved and started to show some level of meta relevance in the OCG. Usually when that happens, the OCG tries to approach the experiment and see whether or not it is a fluke, or is the deck actually good for meta contention. Quickly soon after Phantom Nightmare got released, Japan held a 4,000 player YCS. For those unfamiliar, this is basically a sudden death match, best of one, pretty similar to Master Duel. The main reason they do this is because they do not hold YCSs for more than 1 day, meaning that pretty much it is a full gauntlet of single elimination for multiple players up until the very last round. I'm going to showcase you a little bit of what happened. Basically, this is the top four. The player on the left is playing Rescue Ace, and the player on the right is playing Fire Kings. Previous to this notion, and previous to the release of Phantom Nightmare, I don't think it's a surprise to anyone, but Rescue Ace was pretty much the most dominant deck in the OCG, and it has been for a while now. The main catalyst for that is because of the Simple Spoils engine, just making the deck very, very consistent at what it does. And now we're going to see how can this deck perform well against what we call Fire King Snake Eyes, or Sinful Spoils Snake Eye Fire King. But yeah, we're seeing the player on the right who is piloting the Fire King deck. You can see it over there with the Karunix being in the graveyard, and we see the Snake Eye Ash being summoned. If you don't remember this card debuted in Age of Overlord. It searches for a level 1 fire monster, and the monster that they're searching is the Ponix. After Ponix has been added, he immediately gets contested with Droll and Lockbird, and you already know that Droll and Lockbird is a very, very popular hand trap this format. Basically, against very high ceiling combo decks, that card pretty much like it becomes a really strong catalyst to just like almost outright end the turn. In the OCG, the two really big, in fact, impactful hand traps would be that one as well as Maxi. We see them summoning the Kirin. Kirin destroyed the Ponix to special summon itself. The Garunic special summons itself from the graveyard because a fire monster was destroyed. And now the Garunix is going to pop a fire monster directly from the deck. These are all plays that we're going to be seeing very, very soon, with the Fire King structure deck about to be released like a little under 2 weeks from now. Now we see them linking away into Sunlight Wolf. We're going to link away the Ash into Linkuriboh, and the Sunlight Wolf is going to grab the Kirin back to their hand. And now they're going to summon the Promethean Fire Princess. This is another card that's debuting in Phantom Nightmare. This is a really, really, really strong card. Basically, it reborns a fire monster, and it has a graveyard effect to pop a fire monster and a monster your opponent controls to special summon herself. And when she is summoned, well, while she's on the field, you can only summon fire type monsters. That's why you see the Amblo Whale being summoned and not something else like Appaloosa. Now we're in the standby phase. The Ponix as well as the Barong are going to trigger. The Barong is going to search them for a Fire King card, and the Ponix is going to search them for. The Ponix is going to add itself back to their hand, rather. Now they're going to grab Arvata. The Arvata is going to bring back and add it back to the hand. And you see that the only card on the field at the moment is Amblo Whale. At first glance, you're probably going to think that that's not a really strong end board, and all he's doing is recurring cards back to his hand. But you're going to see very, very soon that this setup is a lot more powerful than it shown at first glance. Now we see the Rescuers player activating Bonfire, and if you remember the last video, I talked about how Bonfire is going to be like a very strong staple for like the Snake Eye deck as well as Fire decks in general, because Populous is just a very, very strong monster. So the Populous is about to get summoned. They try to contest with Maxi. The Rescuers player contests with Ash Blossom. The Populous is going to grab the Sinful Spell Snake Eye. And now we're linking away Populous into Linkuriboh. And the reason we're doing that is because the Populous can grab itself from the graveyard and put itself in the Spell and Trap zone, meaning that the Sinful Spoil Snake Eyes has a free card to fodder off. And this is something very different from the Sinful Spells engine. Basically, we've originally been seeing like the Dark Witch just grabbing the Sinful Spoils and using herself as the catalyst for the summon of a level 1 monster. Now we see Bonfire as a new engine, and that new engine is just as powerful as Sinful Spoils, because instead of losing 2 cards, you are gaining 2 cards, as well as summoning your monster. And so we see that resolve, and now the Hydrant is summoned. This is where the Fire King player is going to like ponder upon his plays, because we see Hydrant and Linkuriboh both on the board. They use the Fire Witch, the Fire Princess, and the Princess is going to target both the Amblo Whale and the Hydrant. The reason he's doing this play right now is because they know that the Hydrant cannot be targeted after another Rescue Ace monster is summoned, and they don't want to lose their chance of just interrupting the Hydrant. We have already known in the past that the Rescue Ace, if they do not resolve Hydrant, they need other extenders in their hand in order to keep their plays going. Otherwise, they're just going to get siphoned out of their advantage. That being said, Rescue player is chaining Alert. Alert is now being played at multiple copies in the Rescue Ace deck. The main reasons for that is because getting to Hydrant is a lot easier now, meaning that essentially Alert just becomes a Rhoda for another Rescue Ace monster. So the Fire Wish is triggered, and now the Amblo Whale is triggered. The Amblo Whale is going to summon Sunlight Wolf. The reason it has to be Sunlight Wolf and it cannot be another monster is because they are locked into fires while the Princess is on the board. The Ponix is going to special summon itself because a fire monster was destroyed. And the Ponix is going to grab us Fire King's spell card. So immediately you just saw one Amblo Whale just becoming 3 monsters on the board during the opponent's turn. We see the Hydrant getting banished. They're going to summon Preventer. This is another play that we've already been seeing. They're going to immediately chain Kirin. The Kirin is going to attempt to pop in order to summon. They're popping the Sunlight Wolf, and now they're summoning the Kirin. The Preventer is being summoned, and because Kirin popped the fire monster, the Garunix can now be summoned. Not only is the Garunix is being summoned, but they're also using Amblo Whale's effect. Uh, Basically, if a monster is destroyed while the Amblo Whale is in the graveyard, a Link monster was destroyed rather, the Amblo Whale is going to destroy one card. And this is just a really, really strong interaction. Like, out of nowhere, because of the existence of the Fire Princess, we've seen 4 monsters being summoned. Well, 5 rather. We've seen 5 monsters being summoned, and we've seen 2 to 3 interruptions. And now the Arvada is going to become another interruption, negating the Preventer from grabbing back the Hydrant. And this is pretty much like what I wanted to show, because as of right now, this is like pretty much one of the better decks in the OCG, and we just see it getting interrupted left and right with the new Fire King support and the new Phantom Nightmare support. So, like, if this is like the main competition that Rescue Ace has at the moment, we're pretty much looking at another tier 1 deck. So I'm going to pause the game right here, and now we're going to get to the gist of it. So during this past weekend, we had a huge tournament that happened in China. It was a 470 player event, and they pretty much held it exactly like a YCS. Pretty much 8 rounds of Swiss in day 1, and a top 32 cut in day 2. And if you look at the top 8 as of right now, you look at the top 6 decks out of the 8 that are in top 8. They are all playing the Sinful Spoils Snake Eye engine. 2 of them being Rescue Ace and 4 of them being the Fire King deck. You already saw in action just how strong this deck is, and it's kind of showing that, like, unless another ban list is addressed in the OCG, this deck is here to stay. This is probably going to become the best deck over there in the OCG, and in a format without Maxi, and a format where stuff like Droll and Logbird and Nibiru are like the strongest cards that we have at the moment, I wouldn't be going as far to say this might actually become the best deck in the TCG. Like, it's incredibly strong, it's very resilient, it's super consistent. And is, as you can see, like, Droll and Lockbird is pretty much the most impactful hand trap that we have as of right now. You can make the argument for Nibiru, but like, at least as far as common hand traps go, Droll is like one of the most powerful ones. I'm not gonna mention Dimension Shifter because not every deck in the game can play that. So if this deck can do all of this under Droll, I can just imagine what can happen here in the TCG. Remember that the main competitors that we have at the moment are like Rescue Ace, Unchained, Purely, Tearlaments, Infernoble Knights, just to name a few. And all those decks are pretty much around the same level, if not even a lower level than the Sinful Spoils Rescue Ace deck. So, yeah, I think we're in for a very, very rude awakening. Besides the Fire King Snake Eye deck, I kind of wanted to talk about a few other decks that also popped up. We see the Infernoids also did have a showing. This tournament was after the release of Terminal World. As you already know, Infernoids is one archetype that received support from that set. And I think it's only a matter of time, but I think Infernoid is another really, really strong deck that a lot of people should be fearing. In the OCG, it's a lot stronger because they do have the grass looks greener. They have multiple copies of the Call by the Grave. They also have max copies of both Reasoning and Monster Gate when we both have those cards limited. However, despite all those tools that we don't have, Fairy Tale Snow is another notable one. I still think this deck is going to be very, very, very strong. It is a graveyard hate like concentrated deck. So against stuff like the Fire Princess that can just special summon herself from the graveyard, this deck can be really strong against those. Against like the other competitors that we have, I think Infernoids are going to have a very, very strong chance once they pop up here in the TCG. Another deck I kind of want to talk about is Silent Force. So Silent Force is a heavy ritual deck that revolves around the Skull King and Sauravis. And this deck has also been performing super well in the OCG. Basically, Nadir's Servant and Diviner are two really, really strong starters. They also have an in archetype starter that can just grab them cards that can give them very strong protection. This deck is really strong, both going first and going second. I'm going to say, like, as far as ritual decks go, Silent Force is pretty much looking like the best ritual deck that we're going to be having ever since we had Necros. So other decks that are worth mentioning is the Performapal deck. So this deck had multiple tops, and one of them was a top 8 finish. So previously on my channel, I've been talking about Valence and how strong Valence is, at least for me in testing. And I think the same thing goes for Performapal. Granted, they do have heavy metal false electromite, while we do not. However, one thing to note is that the Performapal deck is a really, really strong deck when it comes to contesting against hand traps. With just so many powerful Pendulum skills, like monsters that just keep siphoning advantage, this deck can eat through a lot of hand traps, and in a hand trap heavy format, we're just going to have this deck just overperform because a lot of people won't know how to capitalize on it. The only new card we see here that involves Phantom Nightmare is the Magic Spectre Porcupine. For those who don't remember or are not aware, Magic Spectres did receive some level of support in Phantom Nightmare. The Link 2 Magic Spectre monster is really, really strong. However, it does hard lock you into Draco Slayers and Magic Spectres. That's why we don't see it in this deck. However, the Porcupine is just a free extender that you can grab out of Bumbuku. And remember, both Bumbuku and Porcupine cannot be targeted or destroyed. So, no Veiler, no Imperm, no Fire Princess, no good amount of interruptions can stop this from happening, meaning that they can get to their Link monsters very, very safely. Also to note, the Magic Spectres are spellcaster monsters, meaning that you can make Majesty Maiden with one of them, and then turn the Majesty Maiden and the other Magic Spectre into SP Little Knight, and that just becomes another level of disruption against your opponent. But yeah, another thing to note, we are looking at the Valence field spells. I think if you are playing a Pendulum deck, these field spells are very, very phenomenal. If you've seen a few replays involving the Valence deck, you've already seen how powerful this card is. Like both the Chirabancho and the Conic Wizen. Like these are two really, really strong cards. And if they often resolve, you are gaining a lot of significant advantage if you are playing a Pendulum deck. So that's pretty much it when it comes to like this report from the OCG. I kind of wanted to just bring up Fire Kings as a whole because we are getting the structure deck in less than 2 weeks, and even though Fire Kings do not look very, very promising before Phantom Nightmare, it's just a matter of time until this deck becomes exposed to the new support and just outright just becomes pretty much the best deck of the format, uh, as it's looking like at the moment. But yeah, I hope you found this video informative. I hope you found this to your liking and understanding. More videos coming soon. Keep practicing and keep doing.